Shell was dropped in court today during sentencing for a special ed teacher who had sex with a student. Kelly Watson admitted before our cameras that she is pregnant with that student's baby. New tonight, 10 News took the facts of that illegal relationship to a psychologist who told us the love affair was likely no accident.
Prosecutors say the victim is a male. Today, I tracked down one of the country's top researchers on educator sexual misconduct.
It's where a teacher sexualizes a relationship with a student.
Professor Cheryl Shakeshaft says her study in 2004 revealed that there were at least 3.5 million students across the country who had been the target of sexual misconduct by an employee at their school. She says that most of the offenders are teachers or coaches. They are young, old, men and women.
They tend to be teachers who have opportunities to be alone with students.
In the case against McCrae, prosecutors say the alleged abuse started in December 2014. Court documents show some of the alleged abuse.
A high school teacher is behind bars tonight, accused of giving one of her students booze and drugs and having sex with him. Late today, the Rio Rancho police arrested Brenda Ray for rape because the student was 16 at the time.
Police say a Northwest ISD 7th grade teacher arrested last week for having an improper relationship with a student is pregnant. In fact, she's 8 months along, and police do not know who may be the father of Catherine Harper's baby. What they can say is that they believe that she's married and that during the summer they believe she was involved with a 15-year-old.
Vancouver high school teacher accused of raping a student. It's a story we broke on KOIN News 6 earlier tonight at 5. Stephanie McCrae was arrested just this afternoon.
A social studies teacher at a Florida middle school has been taken out of the classroom because administrators learned that she had a side job as the host of a white supremacist podcast. Sarah Seidner has the story.
25-year-old Diana Volatich had one job, teaching social studies to middle school students at this Florida public school. On her off time, she had another passion, sharing white supremacist ideals and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories on a public social media website.
Disturbing details tonight about the relationship between an Albuquerque teacher and her student.
Details that her friends refuse to believe as they continue to stick up for Christy Sanchez Trujillo, even though she's now charged with 3 counts of rape. Here's News 13's Alex Tomlin.
Christy Sanchez Trujillo's friends are divided on this situation. Some are posting supportive messages, while others say they're disgusted. The criminal complaint paints a clear picture of just how far the teacher went with her 13-year-old student. She admitted to police that she took the child to the movies last weekend, and then the two drove to the petroglyphs. They had sex in her car. Tuesday night was the same. She told investigators she was not sure if the two had had full intercourse since he is, quote, just a young boy. Sanchez Trujillo says she repeatedly asked the student if this is what he wanted. This delusional story continues with Sanchez Trujillo saying the student was the best she's ever had, and he's a 25-year-old stuck in a 13-year-old's body. No one came to Sanchez Trujillo's door when I knocked, but we did hear someone yell, "She's not here." A neighbor who didn't want to go on camera said Sanchez Trujillo was nice. Her Facebook page has comments from her friends showing their love and support. Another friend posted a comment saying innocent till proven guilty.
You can't make a generalization, but the issues range from a fantasy on the part of the perpetrator of being younger, of reliving, sort of their teenage life, to something, I guess I would say more sinister, which is it's a power play. I have power and control over you because I am the authority figure, I am the teacher, and somebody who is perhaps insecure and will break the rules at all costs to be the powerful one, particularly if they've at times felt that they weren't, that they were even in an abused situation. Then it's a defense mechanism called identification with the aggressor. I'm going to perpetrate the abuse now. So that may be the scenario. Or it may be the preponderant urge of true pedophilia, which is, I want and feel the need to sexually be with essentially a child. I think that it's more surprising to society today, at least still, that it is a female teacher. We tend to think of perpetrators as being the male, and more commonly, it is a male teacher. I think that while it's uncomfortable for us to imagine a woman being aggressive, being a perpetrator, being a pedophile, being a criminal, essentially, that is more uncomfortable than thinking of it as a male. That's why we react that way, but the reality is females are perpetrators at times. There's a lot of confusion about what does it mean if it's an older teenage boy and a younger female teacher, because historically, culturally, we had this double standard of, well, the male teenager wants to have sex and might even fantasize about his teachers, but that doesn't mean that he wants it or that in any way it would be good for him. Long-term damage, of which there will be some, really depends on the individual psyche of that child. Some people have more resilience, are more able to bounce back from something heinous. Some actually have less and are more likely to suffer issues with intimacy going forward, ability to trust, imbalance in power in relationships. They may therefore suffer from depression, from anxiety disorders, from post-traumatic stress disorder, but the majority will probably, be able to recoup. Obviously, therapy can make a huge difference.
Another Albuquerque public school teacher accused of having sex with a student. Good evening. Police have arrested a 34-year-old man who teaches science at Volcano Vista High School.
School officials say he had a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old student. News 13's Jim Winchester is live at Albuquerque Police Headquarters. Jim?
Well, Dick, in fact, APS says that acquaintances of the 16-year-old girl came forward today and reported the allegations after that 16-year-old girl talked about the relationship that apparently occurred last summer.
An allegation like this is taken seriously.
APS says 34-year-old science teacher Patrick Matthews was immediately placed on paid leave once allegations surfaced this morning about his sexual relationship with a female student.
An APD was brought in right away, so it happened swiftly, and action was taken immediately to make sure that no other students were at risk.
According to Albuquerque police, Matthews and the 16-year-old started a friendship while she was in one of his classes last school year. That friendship led to text messaging and emails and eventually occasional hugging. Then, once school ended in May, police say Matthews went over to the 16-year-old's home one night in late July to give her a hug because she was feeling down. The two allegedly had sex that night, and after that, they stopped communicating. Because of her age and because he's a teacher, it's considered rape. This is the second APS teacher arrested for raping a student in the past few months. APS downplayed any suggestion that there's a problem within the district.
We work with human beings, and as far as I know, there isn't a business around that can shield itself from situations like this from time to time.
And Sonu Wasu begins live team coverage with what led to his arrest. Sonu.
Mark Marsha, tonight that teacher is in jail charged with rape, gross sexual imposition, and sexual battery. Now, we've learned that he was a drama club director at the victim's high school. He was also a 5th grade teacher at Indian Valley, and we're told that he approached the victim at a bicycle shop in Enon.
Mr. Mike, anything you'd like to say at all?
This is your opportunity, sir. A high school drama club director, popularly known as Mr. Mike, is now center stage, walking down the hall of the sheriff's office, dressed in his green and high school t-shirt and in handcuffs. Michael Markison is now charged with rape, gross sexual imposition, and sexual battery involving a male high school student he approached at a bike shop in Enon.
Teacher asked this juvenile to come to his house and that he offered him a job pulling weeds, working around the house. He then invited him inside the residence, and at that time,
Raping her 15-year-old student pleads not guilty in court today. 23-year-old Kendall Burke was a biology teacher at Grant County High School. The sheriff says she began a relationship with one of her 15-year-old male students at the end of last school year, and it turned into a sexual relationship over the summer. Last week, Burke was charged with 4 counts of rape and 4 counts of sodomy. The sheriff says Burke admitted to having sex with the 15-year-old boy twice at her parents' home, where she lived in Dry Ridge, and 2 more times in her car. The district says it's fired Burke, and she is due back in court September 9th.
Math teacher accused of having sexual conduct with 3 of her male students went before a judge today. Our Lauren Hapman was in the Nash County to find out if the teacher had anything to say.
I tried to speak with Erin McAuliffe after court this morning. All she had to say was no comment, but what she did is easier to show you. The 25-year-old who is accused of having sexual contact with 3 of her students at Rocky Mount Preparatory School wore sunglasses and held a notebook in front of her face as she walked out of the courtroom. Once outside, McAuliffe quickly got into a vehicle and took off. McAuliffe is charged with 4 felonies and is no longer employed at the school. Police say the incident with 2 17-year-old students and a 16-year-old student occurred off campus. McAuliffe remains out on bond right now, and she will be back in court on June 29th.
Rape and sexual battery. Lori Anderson was indicted Friday on a total of 25 counts. She is a first-grade teacher at Cridersville Elementary. Bond set at $150,000, which Anderson posted today. Now, we reached out to the school district, a spokesperson telling us they're not commenting.
A 45-year-old teacher at an elite private school in L.A. is accused of having a sexual relationship with a 16-year-old student. Amy Palmatessa, who teaches biology at the Brentwood School, now charged with statutory rape.
About the former Helena school teacher accused of having sex with a teenage student. Renee Carter was charged in February for sexual intercourse without consent that allegedly involved a student several years ago. According to police reports and court documents recently released to the media, the student said he and Carter had sex over 24 times, sometimes on school grounds. The investigation began in 2015 after school surveillance cameras captured Carter and the student allegedly engaging in inappropriate sexual contact. Upon examination, investigators did not find inappropriate contact in the video. The student originally denied an intimate relationship with Carter, but later said the two had sex about 25 times. The student described Carter as a mentor, that Carter, quote, took an interest in him when he began at Capitol High back in 2014. Although the student says he was 17 when the two began a sexual relationship, investigators determined he was unable to give legal sexual consent for other reasons. Carter pled not guilty to the charge in February. The case is scheduled to go to trial December.
For more content, subscribe to my YouTube at Sick Music OKC. My Facebook is at King Sick.